Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about what I would like to see in an Odyssey sequel, or more exactly, what I would do for an Odyssey sequel. So this video is going to be split up into 3 parts, all in one video of course. The first part is going to be me talking about the story, and the second part is going to be about the kingdoms, and third part is going to be bosses. So let's talk about the story first. So this is kind of what I had in mind for a story. So, at first, Bowser Jr., or Bowser's all mad that that Mario and, or I guess just Mario, canceled or destroyed his wedding and stuff. And so, he goes to Isle Delfino to get the magic paintbrush that he remembers Bowser Jr. having in Sunshine. And while he's at it, he wrecks all of Isle Delfino. So Mario gets the news, and once Mario finds out, he goes to Isle Delfino. And in Delfino Plaza, he finds everything's just wrecked. And he talks to some of the Piantas there, and finds out that Bowser stole the magic paintbrush that Il Piantissimo was holding on to. And once Mario finds out, he cleans up the mess that was left after Bowser, and continues on to the next kingdom with Cappy and the Odyssey. So basically, it's basically just Bowser getting revenge on Mario for wrecking his wedding, and along the way, and Bowser Jr. is going to be helping out, and so basically, Bowser Jr. goes to each, or I guess technically both of them, go to each of the new kingdoms and just puts graffiti all over the place, just messes up everything. And once Mario reaches, and along the way, Mario will fight Bowser Jr. a few times, and once Mario gets to Bowser and Bowser Jr., he then will fight them, but Bowser Jr. teams up with Bowser, and it's kind of like just this huge boss fight. But along the way, the Brutals will return as well, but they won't return until the second to last kingdom. But when you fight them, they are in the Mecha Brutal Mark II. So it's basically just the second version of the Mecha Brutal that you destroyed in the first game. And after you defeat them, Bowser Jr., or after you defeat them, you find, like this area with just a bunch of portals, and you see that, you then find out that Bowser Jr. went back to the previous kingdoms you were just at, and stole a bunch of just things from each kingdom, kind of like how Bowser did in the first game. But this time, instead of using the Odyssey, you'll use portals made by Bowser Jr., all in one kind of small hub area. And this is kind of the second half of the game. So you go back to each of the kingdoms, but the portals will give you access to a new part of each of the kingdoms. And once you go to each of the kingdoms, you basically just have to, like, clean up what happened and find out what they took. And then, after going back through all the kingdoms and getting enough moons to power up the Odyssey, that's another thing. The Odyssey gets, after the Mecha Brutal Mark II battle, the Odyssey gets destroyed, and in order to, get it working again, you have to go back to the previous kingdoms and get more moons. But because there are portals that Bowser Jr. Created, you were able to go to different parts of the kingdoms and get more moons that you weren't able to get before. And once you get enough moons to power up the Odyssey again, then you go back to the little hub area, power up the Odyssey, and then go to the last kingdom, which I'll get into in the next part of the video. But basically, Mario goes, he confronts Bowser and Bowser Jr., and has one more battle with both of them. And once Mario defeats both of them, then Mario and Cappy take all the stolen items back to each of the kingdoms, and everything's all good and happy again. So, the story's not going to be anything too, complex, but it never really is for a Mario game. But, I was just wanting Bowser Jr. in the last game, so it's like, it makes sense for him to show up in the sequel, and I kind of really hope he does show up in the sequel as well. And the whole getting the paintbrush from, Sunshine, I think will be really cool. So it'll kind of be a sequel to Sunshine in a way as well, because, and I was also thinking maybe Petey Piranha could return in some way. And maybe a few other enemies from Sunshine. Like, maybe there'll be a Mecha Bowser boss fight. But I'll talk about that in the next part as well. So, that's basically all I have for the story. It's not anything too spectacular, but like I said, Mario games have never really had a great story. At least the main series Mario games. So, that's basically all I have for the story of an Odyssey sequel. But let's get on to the next part, which is basically just my ideas for new kingdoms. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about kingdoms. So, there's probably going to be more kingdoms in the game than what I came up with, but I'm just going to talk about the ones that I came up with. So, let's start with the first one, which is the Industrial Kingdom, or, Bomb-Bomb Factory. So, basically, this kingdom is pretty much just a massive factory. I feel like I would have it kind of like the Wooded Kingdom, where you kind of start off in like kind of a forested area and you go out into a field of flowers with a bunch of, So I think it's going to start off in kind of a foresty area, and then you're going to see this giant factory, and it's going to be raining at the same time, and it's just this giant bomb-on factory, this big-ass tower. And that's basically what I have for the first kingdom. Not the first kingdom of the game, just kind of like the first kingdom I came up with. So, it's just a bomb factory, and basically, because it's just a tall tower, you have to just go up a bunch of floors and, do different challenges on each floor and all that stuff, and find moons and stuff. And then on the very top of the floor, you will fight a boss. But I'll get into the bosses in the next part. But yeah, you fight a boss, and then... yeah, so I think it'd be a really cool kingdom. I really want to see a factory level in a Mario game, or at least a 3D Mario game. I think that would be really cool to see. We got kind of close with Tick-Tock Clock in Mario 64, but other than that, and I'm not really counting the Galaxy games. I'm talking more like the sandbox style open world 3D games. So that's what I have for the first kingdom. For the second kingdom, I was kind of thinking of having a haunted kingdom, or more specifically, Boo Woods. Now, this would basically just be, a haunted forest with a giant, or somewhat giant mansion kind of in the middle, and there'd just be boos all over the place. Maybe have some ghosts from some of the other Mario games, but mainly just the boos. And then, you can get moons outside of the mansion, but once you get inside the mansion, there's like a bunch of floors and traps and puzzles you can solve to get moons and all that stuff, and I think it'd be really cool to kind of have that. I just love, like, kind of spooky, haunted levels in 3D platformers. I've always just kind of liked that kind of stuff in those games, and so I think having this in Odyssey 2 would be really cool. Plus, we didn't see any boos in the first Odyssey game, which was really interesting to me, because, boos are like a staple, in my opinion, but yeah, I think it would be pretty cool to see them finally in the game, and maybe you could capture them too, and kind of use them to kind of get through certain areas of the forest and stuff. So that is what I have for the second kingdom. So for the next kingdom, I was kind of thinking of a giant kingdom. Think of this kind of like that level from Galaxy 2, where everything was just giant. I think it'd be really cool to see a kingdom like that. And maybe just like, you have like giant question blocks, and just everything's big, including the enemies. And so I think it'd be really cool. And maybe you have like a mini boss encounter with like a giant piranha plant. I think that would be really cool to see. But yeah, just a giant kingdom. Not really much to say about it, just everything's just big. So the next one is the Tropical Kingdom, or Delfino Plaza. So I really wanted you to explore Delfino Plaza in the last game, but sadly that didn't happen, so I'd love for you to do that in this game, especially because, you know, Bowser Jr. has, you know, the magic paintbrush again and all that stuff, so I think it would be really cool to return to Delfino Plaza. And I was kind of touching on this in the first part of the video where I talked about the story, but you kind of, this is like the first place you like visit in the game, or the first kingdom you go to is Delfino Plaza, or the Tropical Kingdom as I'm calling it. I would like to see you visit, you know, like the other parts of the island, but I think it's just gonna be Delfino Plaza, and you just kind of run around, you know, there's some moons to collect, but it'll be on the smaller side, kind of like the Cap Kingdom from the first game, and, you know, just getting moons and kind of cleaning up the island a little bit from after Bowser Jr., or after Bowser, actually, you know, kind of wrecked the place, so it'd be really cool to return to Delfino Plaza, and maybe there'd be a cameo from Flood. You know, maybe he'd like show up and kind of be like, "Hey, Mario." Like, I don't think you'd actually use him, but like I feel like it'd be kind of cool to just kind of have a little cameo from Flood. I think that'd be fun. But yeah, so that's that for this one. So for this one, I was kind of thinking of like a space kingdom. In this first game, obviously you went to the moon. But I kind of want to see that expanded upon. You know, I want to see Mario explore space some more. I mean, yeah, you don't want it to be too similar to Mario Galaxy. I mean, you're not running around planets with gravity, you know, mechanics like that game, but like maybe you're just like in space. Maybe you go to Mars this time around or something cool like that, you know, or like the Comet Observatory is kind of there or something. Something cool like that. I just want to see Mario go to space again, even if it's not entirely like Galaxy. And there'd be a really cool boss fight in space if you were to go there, but I'll touch on that in the next part. But yeah, so just a space kingdom. At first, I was just kind of thinking of having it just be the Comet Observatory, but I feel like that'd be too small. I kind of want it to be at least decent sized. So maybe you start off on the Comet Observatory, but then you like go to Mars or something, because maybe something's happening there. And maybe that's where you fight the boss, you know? I think that might be pretty cool, but either way, yeah, so Space Kingdom. And for the last kingdom I kind of came up with is the Lava Kingdom, or to be more exact, Bowser Jr.'s Fortress. So basically, it'll just be just this big fortress that Bowser Jr. made, or, you know, Bowser made for Bowser Jr., but, you know, and there's just a bunch of lava, you know, and I think it'd be pretty cool. I feel like this could be the last kingdom, you know. I think that'd be really cool. And, you know, you have like, and like, you know, this is where you fight the final boss and stuff, but I mean, there's not really much to say about it. It kind of just, you know, explains itself. It's a lava kingdom, you know, it's just filled with lava, and you got a giant fortress kind of in the middle of it, and then inside the fortress, you know, there'll be a bunch of cool shit, and it'll just be really cool. You know, you got like statues of Bowser Jr., got a bunch of lasers and traps and stuff, and outside of the fortress, you know, where all the lava is and stuff, you got like falling volcanic rocks, and you know, maybe it'll be like all like hectic and stuff, so it's just like when you're outside, you know, everything's just like falling apart and stuff, kind of like Grumble Volcano from Mario Kart Wii. You have to make it inside the fortress, and then once you're inside the fortress, there's like a bunch of traps and all this stuff going on. I was kind of thinking of there being a timer, and you have to get to the end of the fortress, or like the top of the fortress, like in a certain amount of time, but I feel like you'd want to take your time to find all the moons and stuff, so I kind of scratched that idea. But yeah, the fortress, I just think that'd be really cool, but it'd be like Bowser Jr.'s fortress instead of just like Bowser's castle or something, you know? So that would be cool, and that's basically what I was kind of thinking for the last kingdom of the game. So I have a few bosses here that I was wanting to talk about that I kind of came up with. So the first one is PD Piranha. I would love to see PD Piranha make a comeback, and seeing as how Isle Delfino's in the game, and so is the Magic Paintbrush, I feel like it'd be cool to see, you know, it'd kind of make sense to see PD Piranha again. And the fight with him would kind of be like the one from Sunshine, except without spraying water on him, you have to capture an enemy that's able to spray water and stuff, and then, or maybe you have to capture one of those like octopus things from the first game, and you have to like fly up into the air, because Petey Piranha is, you know, kind of flying a little bit, and you have to spray him, and then he goes on the ground, and then you uncapture the enemy, and then you have to like ground pound his stomach or whatever. So it'd be very similar to how it was in Sunshine, and I feel like that'd be really cool. For the next boss, I was kind of thinking King Caliente from Mario Galaxy, and I was kind of thinking you'd fight him in the Space Kingdom, you know, like if you go to Mars or something, you'd fight him there, and I think that would be a lot of fun. And maybe like to defeat him, you have to capture like a hammer bro, and then throw hammers like at his head or something. I think that might be pretty cool. Or maybe they could come up with a new enemy that like shoots out coconuts or like shoots out some kind of projectile like that, and you just have to like find an opening and shoot it out at him, and like sometimes he'll block it like he did in Mario Galaxy. So I think that'd be cool. And then for the next one, I was thinking Mecha Bowser, but it'd be the Mecha Bowser from Mario Sunshine. So, except instead of you being on a roller coaster, maybe, I don't know, maybe you're just doing something else. Like there's no roller coaster this time, but it's kind of the same. You just have to shoot him with a projectile and watch out for the flames he has. But maybe he'll have like new moves, like he'll shoot out missiles, I guess, because he did that in the first game as well. Like he has the, you know, he shoots out fire, shoots out bullet bills and stuff. But maybe he'll have like some lasers he'll shoot out, you know, just some new attacks and stuff, and I think that'd be cool. I was thinking Mecha Bowser would be the fight for the Industrial Kingdom. And then for the next boss, I was thinking the Mecha Brutal Mark II. Now, I know you fight the Mecha Brutal for a second time in Odyssey, but this time it'd be completely different. Like, the Mecha Brutal, it'll have like a completely new design. You know, it would just be really cool. I feel like it'd be you'd kind of fight it the same way, you know, all the Brutals would be in like glass domes, and you just have to find a way to break them. It'd be a little harder this time, and like the design of the Mecha Brutal is a little different, so it's just a little harder to take down. And then for the next boss, I was thinking Shadow Mario. You know, if Bowser Jr. has the magic paintbrush again, he'd want to, you know, he like transforms into Shadow Mario again. This time, instead of framing Mario, it's because it makes him more powerful. And so you have a boss fight with Shadow Mario, and there's like, he makes like paint portals to kind of sneak up behind you and stuff like that. And I think that might be cool, and kind of a cool gimmick for the fight. And it'd just be cool to see Shadow Mario again. And then for the final boss, I was thinking of having Bowser and Bowser Jr. like at once. So Bowser Jr. would be in like the Koopa clown car, and then Bowser would just be, you know, on the ground. I'm not really sure how the fight would kind of go. Maybe Bowser Jr. would like throw bomb-bombs down at you. Maybe use the paintbrush as well in some way. And then Bowser would be doing like ground pounds and shooting fireballs at you and stuff like that. And it would just be an awesome fight because you're fighting both of them. And I think that would be really cool. So there's probably going to be more bosses in the game if there ever is one. But these are just the ones that I kind of came up with and thought would be pretty cool. So that's basically what I have for an Odyssey sequel. Now, there's definitely going to be more kingdoms in the game than what I came up with, but I wasn't able to come up with a lot. But yeah, so this is basically what I came up with and what I would like to see in a sequel to Odyssey. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below, what you'd want to see. And yeah, that's basically it for this video. See you guys next time.